I'm not heating up the shop today. Besides, it's a balmy 47 degrees right now here in this nice fall day. If it was 5 degrees warmer, I'd have my shorts on. Yeah, we do that. What I'm doing is going out to the shop to answer a question that over the past few years I've gotten a few times, and I thought I'd address the situation. It has to do with heat. Come on. Heating my shop is really a very easy thing, and I heat it the same way that I heat the house. It is by far the least expensive option of anything, including even solar, which would be free, right? Not really. Um, so this is how we heat here in Maine under certain conditions. This is the semi-jury-rigged heating system that I have here in the shop. After we look at this, I'm going to take you down into the garage because I actually have a spare where we can see how it's made. And then I'll take you to the more updated model of a even different brand in the house and show you how Joyce and I heat the house. This is a monitor heater. They are made in Japan, and they were developed by the Japanese to heat their high-rise apartments. If you ever look at Japan, they don't have a ton of land, so everything's built vertically. And you'll see these like white buildings that'll go up dozens of stories, and they're all apartments. And if you were to look at some place in that apartment, you would see the small pipe sticking out the back. This unit is no longer made. As a matter of fact, the monitor company decided to stop making heaters long ago. And so this one is pretty old. There is a company called Toyotami, which makes a very modern version of this unit. And that's the unit that I have in the house. This was heating the house years ago, and it's still working here. So this unit is about 30 years old. It has never been serviced. I've taken it apart, vacuumed it out, and cleaned it a couple times, but it has all of its original parts, and it still runs. Normally, there's an oil barrel outside because these units use K1, kerosene, which you can buy around here in many different places, and they do deliver it like they deliver oil service. They just have a different truck with K1 in it. K1 is like a clean version of diesel. It's actually diesel, but it's clean. You'll never see black smoke coming out of this thing. It's normally in an oil barrel outside. The one we have in the house is 240 gallons. It's pretty big. And you can put it outside, unlike regular heating oil, because it doesn't freeze or it doesn't gel in the winter. If you have standard heating oil with an oil furnace, you have to have your oil barrel like down in the cellar. You can't put it outside. If you do, you have to have an additive in it, which is very inconvenient to use in order to stop it from gelling or freezing. What I've done for the shop is I've taken a small gas can and I've taken a piece of diesel fuel line with some fittings, and I fitted this to the tank. And right now I have about this much K1 in here. When I want to run the stove, I do this and I turn it on. I have a 5-gallon can that you can't see, it's behind me, that I use to fill this. And that 5-gallon can, if I'm out in the shop off and on quite a bit during the winter, I might use 2 of those to heat the shop. This unit is designed for about 11 to 1,200 square feet. My shop is 625 and it's insulated. So that when I come out here and turn this on, if I wait 20 minutes, I go from freezing weather to my shirt sleeves in about that 20-minute time. And it does a very good job of keeping the whole area, very warm. Now, there's always a little worry of something going wrong here, even though I have it jury rigged quite well, I think. So what I do is I never fill this more than half, and it's usually a quarter full, and I can be out in the shop 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 times in that small amount. So if this should ever let go, it might be a gallon that ends up on the floor, which wouldn't be good because kerosene stinks. But it wouldn't cause any damage or any potential problem as far as fire or anything is concerned. I'll discuss how this works and the controls and how it does its thing, and in comparison to other potential heats that I could have. But before we do that, let's go downstairs and look at the spare one of these I have, and then we'll go in the house and where I have that along with my pellet stove, and we can discuss those things with an updated version. It's a little dark in here. The generator and cart that I just made. And here is my spare heater. Now I've got it all covered up. And what I did was I picked this up for almost nothing. Here in Maine, we had a program. I think we don't have it anymore, right? Because all that got stopped federally. We had a program to install heat pumps, and in a state that has 1.3 million people, they installed about 300,000 heat pumps over a period of just a few years. I looked into it. It wasn't practical for me, and we'll talk about that later when we go inside. But in doing so, a lot of people were getting rid of some of their other heating systems. And the laser units and the monitor units were very popular throughout Maine. A lot of people had them because of their efficiency. So they were pulling them out, saying, maybe I can get a little money for this, $50, $100. And this unit new costs about $2,400, and they last forever. And they're very repairable if you ever have to do a repair on them. So I picked one up, either for spare parts or just to install, because it was working when the guy took it out, and I plugged it in, even though he had it uninstalled, and everything kind of fired up. This is the flue, and this mounts into the wall, and this is the outside. And there's an air inlet and an exhaust outlet. So the air comes in around this outer edge, and it goes out through here. And then there are two tubes here that connect to a combustion blower. One blows air out so the exhaust can go out, and the other one has to do with air coming in from the outside. So the air circulates through the stove from the outdoors, comes outdoors, circulates through the stove, and goes out through the exhaust. Very easy to put in. You drill a hole in the wall about 2.5 inches, and you mount this, and this thing kind of screws on and tightens up with gaskets, and that's it. Since the air is flowing in from the outside, this tube does not get that hot, the part that goes through the wall. The heated part is really right here, the exhaust port. This is the model of K1 heater that's available right now. The monitor, like I said, is no longer being made. This is a Toyotomi, and it's a Laser 73. As a matter of fact, I don't think this model is even made. It's like updated a little bit, but mostly updated with the electronics on here. It's more digital and less mechanical. This unit is really good, but it isn't of the same longevity as the monitors were, from what I understand. And I have experienced this too. I had to replace the combustion blower after about 8 years in this one, whereas the one in the shop, which was sitting in this spot, after 30 years, I haven't done anything to it and it's running great. But it works pretty much the same way. And as you can see, I hope, it has the same sort of exhaust port and air intake that goes to the outside of the house as the monitor has. Controls on this unit are much nicer and more intuitive than the monitor I have out there. And they're still slightly mechanical, slide switches and push buttons, even though there's a digital readout that tells you the temperature that it turns on and the temperature that it is in the room. The latest model has all digital controls instead of some mechanical sliders and buttons. This is a picture of the Laser 73, the stove that I have. When you push the on button, the first thing that happens is that the fuel pump starts up to bring K1 in from the barrel. And also the combustion blower, the circle on the left, starts up and it winds up pretty fast, pulling air in through the exhaust inlet and then pushing it out through the exhaust outlet. And these are both outdoors. A fuel injector nozzle in the combustion chamber accepts the fuel and it is fanned by the combustion blower, and an electronic igniter ignites it. The convection fan starts up and blows air across the heat exchanger, and warm air enters the room through the front of the stove. Now, this house is pretty much an open concept, 1,100 square foot home. It has 3.5 inches of, Corning fiberglass insulation in the walls, and it has about 12 inches in the ceiling. So it's decently insulated. A newer home would have double that insulation in it when they built it with thicker walls. But this is a house that was built back originally in the 60s and has been remodeled twice. The last time, by me, about 25 years ago. But it's not hard to heat. I also heat it using a pellet stove. Now, compared to the K1 stove that I have, the pellet stove, even though very efficient and fairly inexpensive to heat compared to many other heating systems, is still more expensive. So why don't I use the laser to heat? I could. It does a great job. The heat travels everywhere. It seems though we have open the bedroom door, it travels down through the kitchen. But this open concept, along with the ceiling fan in the other room, it heats really good. But the reason I have this is kind of two reasons. One, when you grow up in Maine, many people have a flame. It may have started off as a wood stove or fireplace, but we always had a flame. It's sort of like you can't winter in Maine, or at least do a Maine blizzard without a fire. So the pellet stove makes it very convenient to have a fire because you're not moving wood, you're just pouring pellets into the top of the stove, and it heats quite a bit. This would easily heat all of this, but what I do is I put pellets in and I put it on as low as I can, which is what you see now, so that we have a flame. And it does make the heat very dry, and very penetrating too, just like wood heat normally does. That little thermometer right there, if I put it in the center where the vents are, the air is about 180 degrees coming out of there, and it's constant. It's 24/7, so it does heat quite a bit. And right now the laser picks up the slack, so I'm kind of using both. But if money were an object, I mean a real issue, I would just heat with a laser, because the pellets are more expensive and they have been going up over the past few years. It kind of started with the pandemic and they steadily increased. But I will keep buying them because of the flame. Let's take a look at some optional heat sources for this area. Propane is an option, but in Maine, propane is very expensive. LP gas, which a lot of cities have and a couple do in Maine also, is not available for most people. A heat pump is a definite option, and this calculation is done from my home for the size and how much it's insulated. It's still a very, very good price. And it would be even better if I had solar panels on the roof, which my daughter actually has. But this is the reason why I do not have solar panels and never will. And at 70 years old, I have to look at the potential cost of this for installation over the years. And the heat pump, even with subsidies, was going to be $6,000 to $8,000, and the solar panels would add to the point of maybe 20 to 30,000. So the return over time would be very poor. The wood pellet stove used to be the least expensive option, but pellets have gone up to 40% over the last 4 years, and I don't see that stopping. So right now, it's just a comfort heat for us. So as far as the laser K1 stove, if I were to choose to heat the house exclusively with that, without the pellet stove, no other heat source, it's about $1,500 a year maximum. I will mention that the pellet stove requires a weekly maintenance, basically a vacuuming cleaning, which takes about 5 or 10 minutes. Um, it, I clean out the chimney twice a year. I use a leaf blower, and that's not hard to do at all. And my stove, if you ever seen my other videos, actually slides out and spins around 360 degrees. So it's very easy for me to work on. I put two parts in it in the last 17 years, which is very good. This is an Enviro Milan, um, and which is wonderful, except that with my monitor, I had it for triple that time or double that time and never put a part in it. This one, I put one in. So all my heating systems are really very reliable, but the kerosene heaters require no maintenance, and they're more reliable than even this, which has been very good. How do I move heat around in this area? That right there. It's moving very slowly, and it's moving air up, which is the way we have it in the winter. And you can tell that the air is moving because if you go by a wall or where my computer desk is over here, I can feel a curtain of warm air falling on me at all times. So the air has to be coming someplace. And I figure where it's coming from is from beneath the fan and in from this room where the heat is produced. So the air does circulate. So getting back to where all of this started, I heat my shop with a monitor heater for about $20 a year. There are other options, but this is the one that has worked out to the point of being spectacular for my needs anyway.